Well, next week's budget will contain big changes. We can expect no change, mind you, in the tax rate, no change in the basic social welfare rates, but plenty of other changes. There'll be big cuts in public spending. They'll focus on social welfare, on health, and across all other departments to varying degrees. When it comes to tax, our tax rates will remain the same, our tax bands will apparently be the same, and the credits the same as well. But there will be changes in tax when it comes to VAT. The basic rate of VAT is going to go up 2%. But the impact of the welfare cuts and the health cuts and the various other cuts in public expenditure will also impact on people's incomes. Things like child benefit will be reduced, and there will be various range of charges brought in for the services provided by the state. So at this stage, what we do know is people will have less money in their pockets, but how the state will take that money out is a question we'll only see when the budget is unveiled on Monday and on Tuesday. Yeah, a lot of measures have been flagged in recent weeks, particularly when it comes to spending cuts, cuts in social welfare and cuts in health. Last week we had scare announcements really about big changes in the health system, that there would be the introduction of a €50 charge for a medical card. I don't think that will actually transpire. There were also suggestions that our nursing homes, 40 or 50 public nursing homes around the country would be closed. I don't think we'll see that number of closures, but I think we will see prescription charges, which the Minister for Health, James Riley, had promised to abolish when he took office. Prescription charges will stay and will actually be increased. On the social welfare side, there had been talk of big cuts in rent allowance. I don't think the cuts will be as serious or as swinging as first expected, but there will be cuts in areas like rent allowance, because to preserve the basic rates, as the government is committed to, means they're going to have to cut the welfare bill in other areas. So I think some of these wilder scare stories we can discount, but we can be sure that there are going to be serious cuts in the budget. Yeah, well, certainly the government are going to have to make a lot of unpopular choices, particularly given the fact that they made so many promises during the election campaign. That was only back in February, and both Labour particularly and Fine Gael to some extent gave the impression that they were able to bring in much easier budget, and they gave commitments to preserving things like no changes in university fees, no changes in medical card entitlements, no changes in welfare. A lot of these promises will have to be abandoned. But overall, the government is basing its growth figures on its own forecast from the Department of Finance of 1.6% next year. The ESRI has come out during the last week with much lower growth figures, but the government is sticking by its figures. So for the moment, it's sticking by the plan to make an adjustment of 3.8 billion. At least 3.8 billion will be enough to get us within the targets we're supposed to meet under the EU IMF programme, and they're not going to revise those cuts upwards in the light of lower growth forecasts. At least that is the plan at the moment. Well, there could be some changes. Basically, the government is saying that they will provide people who are employed, they won't have to pay more tax on the money they earn. That is a big commitment, and if they fulfil that commitment, that will be important. They see that as important in order to stimulate growth as well, some growth next year, some spending power. But the increase in VAT, I think, will counter that to some extent. Overall, a lot of what the government is hoping for is outside their hands. If the Eurozone stabilises and a plan is put in place at the end of next week, at the meeting in Brussels, there's a big meeting in Brussels on Friday. If that can stabilise the Eurozone, it could enable the government to meet its targets. But if things go bad at European level, well, then I think we could be looking at another budget in the first half of next year. And this budget could just be an early foretaste of much tougher medicine to come over the next 6 months.